The arrival of the mining colony on Zerion sat like a steel beetle against the crimson landscape, its metallic structures gleaming under the binary suns that never quite set. Colony Administrator Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck, watching. The ore processors worked through another shipment of rare minerals. Zerion was profitable, isolated, and peaceful. That was about to change. 300 miners, engineers, and their families called this harsh world home. They had come here seeking opportunity in the frontier territories, far from Earth's crowded cities and regulated industries. The planet's gravity was 1.3 times Earth normal, its atmosphere barely breathable without filters, and its surface temperatures could swing 60 degrees between day and night. But humans had thrived in worse places. They always did, light years away. In the command chamber of the Krillian warship Devastator, Supreme Commander Thax reviewed the intelligence reports. The human settlement on Zerion represented everything his species despised about these upstart mammals. They spread like a virus, claiming worlds that rightfully belonged to older, more established civilizations. The Krillians had ruled their sector for 3,000 years. They would not tolerate human expansion into their sphere of influence. The tactical assessment seemed straightforward. 300 humans, mostly civilians. Basic defensive turrets designed for meteor strikes. Not military assault. A single communications relay that could be easily jammed. No military garrison within 50 light years. Thax's fleet of 5 warships and 800 warriors would overwhelm them in hours. The extermination would serve as a message to humanity. About the consequences of overreach. The Krillian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zerion system on what the colonists had designated as a Tuesday. It was ore processing day, which meant most of the colony's heavy equipment was operational. Chief Engineer Marcus Webb was the first to notice the anomaly on the deep space sensors. His blood ran cold as he recognized the signature of multiple large vessels approaching at combat speed. Sarah Chun's voice crackled over the colony-wide intercom within minutes. Her words were calm, measured, but everyone heard the steel underneath. Attention all colonists. We have confirmed hostile vessels approaching our position. This is not a drill. Implement Protocol 7 immediately. We have approximately 6 hours before they reach orbital range. Protocol 7 was something they had all hoped never to use. It was the contingency plan drafted by every human colony since first contact with hostile alien species. It assumed no help would come, no mercy would be offered, and survival would depend entirely on human ingenuity and determination. Every colonist knew their role. In 6 hours, the mining colony would transform into something else entirely. The children were moved to the deepest mine shafts, along with the medical staff and essential supplies. Every piece of mining equipment was repurposed. Drilling lasers became weapons. Seismic charges for breaking rock became buried explosives. The ore processing plant's industrial fabricators switched from producing equipment parts to ammunition and armor plating. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the colony's chief physician, worked with her team to synthesize combat stimulants from their medical supplies. The same drugs that helped workers endure Zerion's harsh environment could push human endurance far beyond normal limits. She also prepared something else, something that would only be used if all other options failed. The colonists called it the Darwin Protocol, though none spoke of it above a whisper. As the Krillian fleet entered orbit, they were surprised to find the colony's shields raised. Thax had expected panic, attempts at negotiation, perhaps even surrender. Instead, the humans had activated every defensive system and withdrawn into hardened positions. No matter. His warriors were bred for combat over centuries of selective genetic enhancement. These miners and technicians would break at the first sight of Krillian might. The first dropships descended through Zerion's turbulent atmosphere, carrying 200 elite shock troops. They expected to land unopposed and establish a beachhead for the main invasion force. Instead, they flew directly into a carefully orchestrated Hell. Mining foreman Jake Sullivan had spent 3 hours calculating optimal firing solutions for the repurposed drilling lasers. As the dropships entered the predetermined kill zone, 12 industrial lasers designed to cut through solid rock sliced through alien armor like tissue paper. 3 dropships exploded before they could react. The others scattered, trying to land outside the colony's defensive perimeter. That was when they discovered the colonists' second surprise. Every suitable landing zone for 50 kilometers had been seeded with mining charges. The Krillians who survived the laser barrage found themselves landing in minefields that turned the ground beneath them into volcanic eruptions of molten rock and metal shrapnel. Commander Thax watched the tactical display in disbelief as 40% of his initial assault force was eliminated before even reaching the ground. These were not the actions of panicked civilians. The humans had prepared for this. They had anticipated. Every move turned their entire world into a weapon. The Krillian warriors who survived the landing found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered. The miners wore improvised armor made from heat-resistant plating used in the OW, or processors. It carried weapons cobbled together from industrial tools that were crude, but devastatingly effective in Zirian's environment. Worse, they seemed to know exactly where Krillian forces would move before they moved there. Security Chief Ana Rodriguez had studied every military engagement. Humanity had fought against alien species. She knew that most aliens approached warfare with rigid doctrine, honor codes, and established patterns. Humans had no such limitations. They had learned warfare from nature itself, where only the adaptable survived. She coordinated the colony's defense from the command center, using the mine's extensive sensor network to track every Krillian movement. The aliens tried to establish a forward base in what seemed like a defensible canyon 2 kilometers from the colony. They didn't know that geologist Tom Park had identified it as a natural trap weeks ago when they first detected the approaching fleet. As Krillian forces consolidated their position, Park detonated charges that collapsed both ends of the canyon. The resulting landslide buried 80 warriors under millions of tons of Zirion's unforgiving rock dot by nightfall of the first day. The Krillians had lost nearly half their ground forces without taking a single colony structure. Commander Thax ordered his remaining troops to withdraw and regroup. He would bombard the colony from orbit, reducing it to glass and ash. But when he gave the order, his weapons officer reported a problem. The humans had activated some kind of interference field using their mining equipment. The electromagnetic signature of their ore processors, amplified and broadcast skyward, made it impossible to achieve weapon lock from orbit. The second wave began at what the colonists called dawn, though Zirion's binary suns made traditional day-night cycles meaningless. This time, Thax committed his entire remaining ground force, 500 warriors, supported by armored vehicles and aerial drones. They would overwhelm the human defenses through sheer numbers. Sarachun watched them come from the command center. She turned to her staff, men and women who had become family over their years on this harsh world. They still don't understand, she said quietly. They think we're defending territory. We're not. We're defending our children, our future, our right to exist. And there's nothing in this universe more dangerous than humans protecting what they love. The battle for Zarian was about to enter its deadliest phase. Asterisk. The reckoning, the second Krillian assault, came with the force of an avalanche. 500 warriors advanced across the crimson plains toward the colony, their armor gleaming like metallic insects under the binary suns. Commander Thax had learned from his earlier mistakes. This time, his forces moved in dispersed formations, making them harder targets for the mining lasers. Aerial drones provided reconnaissance, and armored vehicles offered heavy support. But the colonists had learned too. During the night, they had transformed Xerion's hostile environment into their greatest ally. The planet's atmospheric pressure differentials, which normally made surface operations hazardous, had been weaponized. Engineer Marcus Webb had reconfigured the colony's atmospheric processors to create localized pressure bombs, invisible pockets of compressed air that would detonate when disturbed. The first Krillian vehicles hit these pressure mines 20 minutes into their advance. The explosions didn't just destroy the vehicles. They created chain reactions in Xerion's unstable atmosphere, generating tornado-force winds that scattered troops and equipment across kilometers of rocky terrain. A carefully organized assault became chaos in seconds. Maintenance supervisor Lisa Cooper had spent the night teaching her team a different kind of warfare. They had studied the Krillian equipment captured from destroyed dropships, identifying critical weaknesses. The aliens' advanced technology relied on delicate energy systems that were vulnerable to Xerion's unique combination of mineral dust and electromagnetic interference. Cooper's team had modified the colony's mining drones to spray clouds of magnetized ore particles. When these clouds enveloped Krillian warriors, their armor's power systems failed catastrophically. The psychological element of the human defense proved equally devastating. The colonists had discovered that Krillians communicated through a combination of pheromones and low-frequency sounds. Xenobiologist Dr. Michael Foster had synthesized artificial pheromones from captured Krillian remains, creating chemical signals that triggered primal fear responses in the alien nervous system. These fear pheromones were released through the colony's ventilation system whenever Krillians entered enclosed spaces. Mining supervisor Carlos Mendez led a group of volunteers in what they called the ghost raids. Using the extensive mining tunnel network that ran beneath Xerion's surface, they would emerge behind Krillian lines, strike quickly, and disappear before the aliens could respond. The tunnels were too narrow for Krillian warriors in full armor, and their technology couldn't penetrate the mineral-rich rock to track human movement. To the increasingly demoralized alien forces, it seemed as if the planet itself was swallowing. Their comrades. By the third day, Commander Thax faced a crisis. His elite warriors, bred for conquest and trained from birth, were being systematically eliminated by civilians who shouldn't have lasted 3 hours. Worse, his attempts to call for reinforcements had failed. The humans had somehow extended their jamming field to block faster-than-light communications. No word of the disaster unfolding on Xerion would reach the Krillian Empire until it was too late. The colony's teacher, Margaret Stone, had organized the older children into intelligence gatherers. Using small maintenance shafts too tiny for adults, they planted listening devices throughout the tunnel systems. Every Krillian communication, every tactical discussion, was monitored and relayed to the command center. The aliens never suspected that their downfall was being orchestrated partly by human children, barely in their teens. Agricultural specialist David Kim had turned the colony's hydroponic farms into biological weapons factories. The genetically modified plants that fed the colony could be rapidly altered to produce toxic spores. These spores were harmless to humans, but caused severe respiratory distress in Krillian physiology. The aliens found themselves fighting not just humans, but an increasingly hostile ecosystem that seemed determined to reject their presence. On the fourth day, Thax made a desperate decision. He would use his ship's emergency protocols to generate an electromagnetic pulse that would disable all technology on the planet's surface, including his own forces equipment. In the resulting chaos, his warriors' superior physical strength would overwhelm the humans in close combat. It was a violation of Krillian military doctrine, but defeat was no longer an option. Sarah Chan had anticipated this possibility. Hidden in the deepest mine shafts were mechanical weapons, spring-loaded crossbows, and chemical explosives that required no electronic components. The colonists had also prepared for close-quarters combat. The months of working in Zirian's higher gravity had made them stronger than Earth-normal humans. Combined with the combat stimulants Dr. Vasquez had synthesized, they could match Krillian warriors in raw strength for short periods. When the EMP struck, the colony's lights went dark. For a moment, there was silence across the battlefield. Then, from every tunnel, every building, every hidden position, humans emerged carrying weapons that belonged in a museum. The Krillians, their advanced armor now dead weight, found themselves facing an enemy that had prepared for exactly this scenario. The battle that followed was brutal and primitive. Pickaxes designed to break through Zirian's toughest rock proved equally effective against Krillian armor. Mining explosives detonated by simple chemical fuses turned defensive positions into death traps. The colonists fought with the desperate fury of cornered animals protecting their young. Construction worker James Taylor would later describe the moment that defined the battle. He saw a Krillian warrior advancing on the schoolhouse where the youngest children were hidden. Without thinking, Taylor charged the alien with nothing but a mining hammer. The Krillian was twice his size, bred for war, but Taylor had something the alien didn't: the absolute certainty that he would die before letting harm come to those children. The ferocity of his attack, the complete abandonment of self-preservation, overwhelmed the warrior's trained responses. This scene played out across the colony. Parents became berserkers. Teachers became snipers. Engineers became saboteurs. The Krillians had expected to fight humans. Instead, they faced something far more dangerous. Humans with nothing left to lose and everything to protect. Commander Thax's final log entry, recovered later from his abandoned command ship, revealed his growing horror at the situation. They do not break. They do not surrender. Everyone we kill seems to make the others fight harder. They use their own bodies as weapons, sacrificing themselves to protect their offspring. What kind of species evolves this way? What kind of world created them? On the 5th day, Thax ordered a full retreat. Fewer than 100 of his 800 warriors remained combat effective. But as his survivors attempted to reach the extraction ships, they discovered the humans' final trap. During the night battles, colonist teams had planted explosive charges on every Krillian vessel. The ships that had brought death to Zirian would never leave its surface. The detonations were visible from orbit. 5 warships, 8 transport vessels, all destroyed in synchronized explosions that lit up Zirian's sky like false dawns. Commander Thax and his remaining warriors were stranded on a hostile world with an enemy that had proven utterly ruthless. In defense of their home, Sarah Chun's voice echoed across the battlefield through battery-powered speakers. Commander Thax, you came here to exterminate us. You called us weak. You thought our lack of military forces made us easy prey. But you forgot something fundamental about humans. We are descended from persistence hunters who chased prey until it died of exhaustion. We survived ice ages, plagues, and predators. That would have ended other species. We don't need to be stronger than you. We just need to outlast you. And on this world, in this place, we will. The remaining Krillians surrendered within hours. They had no ships, no reinforcements coming, and no hope of survival without human assistance. The mighty Krillian Empire's expansion had been stopped cold by 300 human civilians on a backwater mining world when Earth's military finally arrived 6 weeks later. Responding to the colony's emergency beacon, they found a scene that would become legend throughout human space. The mining colony stood intact, its defenders battered but victorious. Around it lay the wreckage of one of the most powerful invasion forces ever assembled by the Krillian Empire. Asterisk. The message that spread across the galaxy was not one of human military might, but something far more frightening to those who might threaten humanity. It was the story of ordinary humans, civilians with no military training, who had turned their entire world into a weapon rather than surrender. It was proof that every human, when pushed to the edge, carried within them the legacy of a species that had clawed its way to dominance on one of the universe's most dangerous planets. The Krillian Empire never attempted expansion toward human space again. Neither did anyone else who heard the story of Zarian. The galaxy had learned a fundamental truth. Humans might build colonies and talk of peace, but beneath that civilized exterior remained the descendants of persistent predators who had survived. Everything the universe could throw at them, and they protected their own with a ferocity that defied comprehension. In her final report to Earth's colonial authority, Sarah Chun wrote simply, "Zarian colony reporting. Invasion repelled. All hostile forces neutralized. Colony intact. Population safe. We held the line." She didn't mention the cost. She didn't need to. Every human who read those words understood what holding the line meant. It meant that 300 miners, teachers, doctors, and farmers had looked at impossible odds and decided that surrender was not an option. It meant that ordinary people had become extraordinary, because that's what humans did when their children's lives were at stake. The galaxy would remember Zarian not as a battle, but as a warning. Threaten what humans love, and discover why they became the dominant species on a world that killed everything asterisk.